I'm Abhishek, and you're listening to Connected by mParticle, where we interview the people that help create some of the most beloved brands in the world. These folks have a unique ability to bring together seemingly unrelated people and technologies to deliver some truly amazing results. I know I've said this a million times, but seriously, thanks for making time to do this.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. Good to be here.
Before I get into some of the questions and pick on you for certain situations, would love to just kind of understand who Nick Warner is and share that with our listeners.
You got it. My name is Nick Warner. I'm the head of growth for Route. I've been in the mobile app space for most of my career, going up nearly like 10 years in mobile apps, specifically on the consumer side. And I love growing companies. It's what I do.
I know we've been working together for the last few years. Understatement of the century, but I wanted to dive into that a little bit, right? Because just looking at your career trajectory, I mean, it seems like from day one, right? You've been at startups, and startup one led you to startup two, and startup two led you to startup three. What about startups, like, or what drives you to startups? Like, what about startups appeal to you?
Yeah, so I would say that it really started when I was in college. And I went to college at San Diego State. Some call it the Harvard of the West. Uh, but at San Diego State, there is an awesome entrepreneurial program, and it essentially operates like a scholarship where if you get accepted into this program, you get the competencies, the mentorship, and all of the learnings of how to start your own business. And it's called the Leonard Lavin Entrepreneurial Program. And I was an art major at San Diego State and kind of didn't have my way about me. And one of my buddies told me to apply. I was one of maybe thousands of other kids who applied for the program, the only art major, I can assure you. And I got in on a whim. And that program really exposed me to what entrepreneurship is and like what it means to start your own business and getting traction. And so you start reading Zero to One and the Lean Startup and all these different books. And I'm like, all right, this clicks, man. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
And my exposure to the work world uh, at that age was very limited. And so like this was definitely a realm where I felt I could expand and explore my curiosities with. And so um, during that program with some of my some of my other students, we started some businesses. Some had some successes, some had failures, some gained traction, uh, some got a lot of views. It was a really cool experience. And when I was a senior, this was during the time when mobile apps were sort of really taking off. Like Facebook was creating their mobile app, kind of that transition from web into mobile was taking place. And I knew that, apps were going to be the next big thing. And so in San Diego, the startup community at the time was kind of interesting, very dominated by medical and scientific companies. And there weren't a lot of like true, like, hey, consumer focused companies that you could see there. Now it's a little bit different. Um, so at a venture event, a San Diego venture group that I was not invited to, but crashed middle of the day and skipped class for. I sat next to a gentleman who was working on a product, working on an app, was telling me about his idea and showed it to me, and it was all in the parental control space. And I was like, this is really interesting. I was a late bloomer to the iPhone. I had a BlackBerry for a long time, but I understood, the impact and the way that social media was kind of like impacting kids to some degree. And I was like, all right, this could be cool. This could be cool. And so I jumped on with that company as like I think the third official employee. There was like our CEO, a engineer, and then me, and we were in a closet. And that company eventually grew to a really good state. And along that way, I was exposed to pretty much every adversity you might have when it comes to running a startup or starting your own business, raising capital, uh, doing layoffs, hiring, raising more capital, you know, be going through product market fit and going through how to like kickstart a marketing plan, how to build like the appropriate data platform so you know what's working in your app, and then really taking a bunch of unknowns and turning the lights on and saying, okay, like where are we in the marketplace? It's pretty cool. And I think that startups really give people who have inherent curiosity about their future and what is interesting them, and allows them to apply that in a very unique way. And so that's why I've continued to gravitate to the startup space. And maybe I won't be here forever, but I can't find a reason to leave.
A couple of thoughts there. I think one, to hear you say, hey, you got into this, kind of amazing program, then to go, into and actually kind of put your money where your mouth is, go into a real startup, right? Not some Series D 400 employee organization, but quite literally three, and then kind of go through those failures, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't all pretty. Success comes easily, but I think some of the failures too, and like accepting those and saying, hey, I still want to do this and get back up and do it again is super impressive.
Yeah, and I think I'm not the only one who's had this story. I think that when some people who jump into a startup, maybe it's right after college, or maybe they've taken a year off and they want to get into the workforce. They might have this expectation, okay, like this startup is going to become like the next big unicorn, right? And there's this dream that kind of like keeps you up at night. Like you think that you're going to make out like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, and that's obviously not a reality. Like out of everybody who's started a startup, like how many companies are public currently out of the United States, and how many people are household names? Like not any. Even some of the smartest people that I've been exposed to in this industry, like you know, don't have the marquee name to them. So I think where I kind of just it really changed my frame of reference was understanding that any opportunity or any situation that I'm in, it is a foundation for learning. And if I compound my learning quicker and sort of like hack time by throwing myself in really horrible situations, then maybe I can become smarter in ways that are meaningful to how businesses and startups and products operate. So that was kind of my philosophy. I don't know if it's absolutely played out, and it was pretty naive at times, but I think so far I've been on a good track.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think kind of segues into the next thought I had, right? I think now that we've kind of established, okay, this is where you've come from. I think one of the things that I wanted to share with the audience is, a bit of learnings, right? It's like, hey, can we steal some things from Nick Warner's book and maybe apply it to our own organizations. On that point of learning, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, from your experiences just working with startups, what are some of the most important things to prioritize when you don't necessarily have like all the resources, right? You don't have a fully built out product team or 20 marketers on your team, or the budget to necessarily go and buy whatever you want. Have you kind of thought about that, and like do you have any guidance on from phases of a startup, right? Like what are some of the key things that you try to say, hey, this is the most important stuff to get right in the beginning?
I could probably answer that question for another 45 minutes.
Yep.
I I you know I was fortunate to be on a conversation with Andy Johns, who used to be the VP of product, or I think maybe the GM of Wealthfront, but he was one of the original sort of growth hackers at Facebook. And a similar question, was asked to him on this call, and he responded with, "You need to have an absurdly detailed view of who your perfect customer is." And I think that statement's really, really powerful in a way because it is the evolution of what product market fit is. And, you know, the concept of product market fit can be swayed a number of different ways. It can be swayed by how your CEO is perceiving your business, or how your CMO is, articulating and spinning this banquet of, how awesome the product is and how awesome the consumers are. But fundamentally, understanding product market fit is going to give you the signals on whether or not your business or your product is going to have a future. And so we utilize a number of different tools to measure product market fit. There's an article by Raul Vora. I believe, hopefully I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. He's the man, CEO of Superhuman. He wrote an article on First Round Review, which is an amazing site, a lot of stuff there. And it was breaking down, how he turned his product Superhuman, and like just had a lot of compounding growth by focusing on product market fit. And how you measure product market fit is pretty important. So there's a couple of questions that you can ask, like how do you feel if you could no longer use this product? And you break it down to very disappointed, not disappointed, and then another one, depending on who you're showing to, is like I wouldn't care. But if over 40% of your respondents say that they would be very disappointed if your product no longer existed, then that is a good indicator that you are on track for product market fit. And these types of studies can happen during any point in time in your product's life cycle and your business's life cycle. In fact, we at Route, we ran something at the very beginning of when we started with one of our single products. We've run it like 3 or 4 more times since we've launched that product. We rerun it for every individual feature. Like you can go on the granular level and just ensure that, hey, like, are we on track here? And that is a really good thing to have in mind, because it helps ground, the confidence and the decision making of the business ultimately into something that is concrete. So then from there, going back to like the absurdly detailed view of like who your perfect customer is, unpacking that a little bit, it's maybe getting into the realm of like, okay, we want to build personas of our customers. Not a lot of people have that competency of building like, hey, our customer's name is Jenny and she lives in Wisconsin and she has a household income of X and X. Not a lot of people have the aptitude to go through that exercise. And, from there, you can't really understand the feelings that your customers might have. You can't really measure something that's so subjective. So you need to bridge that by having a good grasp on what types of value indicators lead to engagement in your product or on your website or on your service. Like if you're going, so let's say you're launching a brand of shoes on your website, okay?
Yep.
And you're driving a whole bunch of traffic, right? But people are bouncing, people are clicking shop. You've got 6 different videos showing how cool your shoe is, and you've got one call to action to shop now. Like, understanding, okay, are all of our users viewing these videos? And if they're not, then they're probably not going to be hitting shop now. So you kind of like shorten that a little bit by saying, okay, maybe there's just one video or one product shot. Is this an indicator that will lead to shop now? And, you know, sort of building that user journey according to the steps that are required in order for your customer to create like a value indicating action inside the product. And so something that that we do for nearly every feature we launch at Route, and what I've done for at nearly every company that I've been at, is mapping out as clear as you can get the user journey of your product or a visitor to your site or a service. Like for service, you have, you know, your value streams of, you know, a sales cycle. You got your AEs, your SDRs. I'm probably messing that all up. And
No, that's
yes. Oh, all right. I'm on
that's
point.
all
I'm
that,
on
man.
point.
You're in my world a little bit now, but yeah, that's spot on.
I'm making somebody proud over there. And so you have those value streams, right? And you're mapping, okay, what's our drop off here? What's our drop off here? What's our drop off here? Bam. And there could be a moment of enlightenment. And the same thing happens when you're valuing a product, right? Like you have a splash screen, you have a sign up screen, you might have some action inside of the product that leads to another action, that leads to another action, that leads to, oh, everybody who does this action retains at like a 10% higher rate. So then you kind of get the framework of, all right, if we start moving these pieces around, how can we create a really cool experience that is meaningful? And you evaluate that with some data, and identifying those value indicators. Um, I think with what a lot of startups really struggle with right out the gate is, and this is an exercise that I've gone through with founders and a couple of awesome projects that I've had the benefit of like sharing some of my knowledge on, is that if you're working with a visionary product manager or visionary CEO or visionary VP in some degree, in their mind, they're going to have the absolute perfect view of what their product is going to be. And that will remain consistent nearly at every stage of your business's journey. And what's important is recognizing, okay, we don't have the resources to create this absolutely perfect product where, you know, we're uploading live videos and, you know, we've got kids posting videos and we've got people sharing videos and we've got this messaging part of the product and we've got this feed of like all of this information and news and stuff like that. I'm talking a little bit like Facebook, you know, but you don't really have like every single one of those features requires a lot of resources. So you have to be comfortable saying, okay, we've got to start somewhere. And at this point in our life cycle, the best strategy that we could lead with is saying no to things. You know, that's everyone's very resistant in the early age to say no because you want to do everything. But when you do everything all at once, you end up creating product and creating features that might be lackluster, might be buggy, and you know, you may have cut corners in an area that you didn't realize was super important to the customer experience. And you know, that creates frustration and toxicity, and it starts things off on a really bad foot. So what I would take is an exercise, like whether you have like a product journey, map that product journey out, then map out the most ideal product journey, and then break it off into chunks and say, okay, what can we accomplish now? What can we create next? And that creates your roadmap. You know, you don't realize it, but you're building that roadmap in your head.
You know, you're right in that. I think we all, right, in all of our jobs and what we want to put out, like we have this kind of like ideal kind of version or thought of what this thing could be. But oftentimes, right, like we don't actually go out and test those assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And what you said there, I think, is so important because you have to be visionary, right? You have to start somewhere and have an idea, but at the same time, you got to go out and test that idea and be very meticulous in your measurement of, if you think this video is going to lead to a particular action that you want a customer desire, or you maybe start thinking, hey, this is my ideal customer. And when you start to give them surveys or reviews, maybe you realize like, hey, what you originally thought when you started this journey isn't actually, the data doesn't necessarily support that. And I think that maybe is what allows startups to quickly pivot and change and kind of get better at, I guess, placing those educated bets on what's going to succeed next.
Yep. And if I could abbreviate that, it is understand product market fit, make sure that you have data inputs to evaluate your decisions, and then plan according to your resources, so there's a lot of stuff there.
Oh, no, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna, I think one of the other things I want to talk to you about too, because you've obviously created some really amazing experiences, products in your career, and I've seen that, right? I've had the pleasure of working with you for the last 3 years. There's a lot of like seemingly, and again, I don't think a lot of this is intuitive, maybe, and potentially for some of the folks listening, that there's this like very interconnected like layer of different people and even technologies and data that have to come together in like these unique ways to drive these kinds of experiences. So
yeah,
I guess my question is, can you speak a bit to like the importance of kind of how working with colleagues, partners, teams kind of outside of maybe your own core team have helped you discover and drive, a product or an experience or an outcome?
Oh yeah, man. Great question.
Oh, thanks.
Great question, man. I think in some ways, that having an answer and an understanding of that situation can turn into an absolute superpower for you as like an individual contributor, as a manager, anything higher, as a VP, even as a CEO. Like, you have to be able to branch out of your comfort zone in order to get shit done. And so wait, can we curse on this podcast?
Yeah, we can do whatever we want.
So I will say, I'll give a little bit of an anecdote here. So I started as a, like, quote unquote, I think a marketing manager was my title, but those three of us, I was a marketing manager, we had engineering, and we had like CEO. And I didn't really know what I was doing marketing wise. Like, I ran some ads on Facebook and done some search engine ads, and my knowledge of the business was very limited. And when you are given a role, like, whether it's marketing, whether it's product, whether it's, and you're an engineer, you're working as an analyst, you're never going to have the full picture of the business unless you actually go out and seek it. And that full picture of the business is going to help you make better decisions in your role, and hopefully help level you up during your duration at that company. So what I did, and as we grew, kind of like starting from that three of us eventually becoming like 20 people, mostly all engineers, is I recognized that we were developing some pretty intense technology. We were utilizing like a mobile device management technology back in, I don't know, 2013, 2014, which was not in the consumer space whatsoever. And I didn't know how it worked. It's plain and simple. I had no idea how it worked. And what I did is I grabbed like our head of architecture and sat him down in a room. I got him like lunch that day, and I was just like, dude, we are going to have a huge knowledge transfer with me. I need to know how this works, because if I know how it works, then I know how to get the best customer to use this product. All right. And I need to know when they're using this product, how they're going to retain, what's going to trigger, where that aha moment is going to be. And sometimes it's not as simple as like, signing up for a subscription for content. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
very much like you got to take this user by a journey that's not going to be easy. And getting users to onboard for this product, Avi, was not easy. Like they had to get another device and
Yeah.
install a profile on their child's device. We're in the role of parental management, so it was a lot, and a journey that had a lot of friction. But what that did is, that really allowed me to be comfortable of opening up these other lines of communication. And one thing, and I guess like maybe this is a mental model to some extent, but I have like no hubris when it comes to being in a meeting or or talking in a room when I know that I am without a doubt the dumbest person in that room. Like if you are surrounded by the smartest individuals, like try to absorb as much information from them when you can. Always ask questions. Always always try to understand their point of view. Start developing that competency of building empathy with your colleagues, because you never know when you're going to lean on them for something. And where it really pertains to growth and user acquisition or marketing is that if you're a marketer or you're in a position where you're marketing a product, sometimes you're never going to be in control of what that product looks like, or what that product does, or how that product conveys value to the customer. You might have opinions, but you're not going to be in control of it. Your voice might be big, it might be low, but you might not ever be in the room where those decisions are being made.
Right.
So what you need to do is you need to talk to those individuals of why those decisions were made, right? Like, why does the user have to do this? Why is that valuable? And during those conversations, you can pull out some awesome tidbits. Some of the best marketing copy, or like the best value props, have come from those discussions for me. Like hearing an engineer discuss the product of like, yeah, if the user does this, oh, guess what? Then they can do this. And that then they can do this turns into a bullet point on a slide deck that gets you to raise money from a VC. Like those are the best types of conversations to have. And I think that you first, if you're not doing them, then that's totally fine. It could be easy as like getting coffee with somebody. It could be as easy as just asking a product manager, hey, can I sit in on your stand up? I want to know how you lead the team. You want to get a feel for how this area of the business operates. Very rarely are people going to say no, because it's like no sweat off their back. And if you ask them for advice, or you ask them to explain and educate you on this part of the product, people love being in a position where they can talk knowledge. Like
Yep.
it's great. Like I think it's something about that human connection that that elevates you in a certain degree. And so if those relationships didn't exist, I probably wouldn't have seen any success in my career. I would be in San Diego on the beach, probably serving drinks at a bar. Like I
Yeah.
would have gone in a completely different direction if I didn't recognize that I needed to start getting this info, because those individuals, like engineering, that architect that I talked about with you, finance,
Yep.
DevOps, they become your best, support when moments really matter, or when you need to get something moved over to the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's, what's interesting there too, and there's a part of this you said, it's like some of your best ideas, from say maybe a marketing perspective, right, didn't necessarily come from you talking to other folks in marketing about the greatest idea. It came from, maybe interacting with a product person or someone on the engineering team. I don't know. The analogy I almost had when you were talking about this is like, it's almost like knowing, like, you're in this tool shed and, maybe you have all these, but like, you don't know how to use them, and you don't know what combination of how you're going to use these tools to build something. But the more folks you talk to, the more like you understand, okay, like I can use, this tool in this way, or I know the company works in this way. And because I know that, you know, actually it might not make sense to, to build a campaign or build a journey, or incorporate this, part of a product in my roadmap. This actually works better.
Yep, dude, exactly. Like for the toolbox analogy, if you're told to like build a treehouse and you've got a screw that's a Phillips head and a toolbox, and you don't know what a Phillips head screwdriver or drill bit looks like, the only way to figure out if it's going to work is by trying to use other tools, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to leverage, what you have at your disposal.
Staying on this theme of connectivity just one more question, maybe could you share a story, from a connectivity of data and technology? Any cool stories about how you kind of combine tech and data in an interesting way to make something happen? Maybe for somebody, a product manager or kind of a data-driven marketer listening to this podcast.
Yeah. I absolutely. The company before Route Fair, it was a car subscription company. I'll use this one as an example. We were driving user acquisition through paid media, as pretty much anyone in the automotive space does. And we were getting really, really good at it, really good at driving like top of the funnel user acquisition. And part of the business and user journey of being a car subscription, you have to pick out a car, right? You have to find a customer who's getting bombarded with all these different options, getting decision fatigue from looking at Subaru, Toyota, Nissans or Bentleys, like everything. Like there's so many options on the table, and you got to break through that noise in order to get that user at the right moment with the right product in order to make them create that purchase. That is why automotive is so difficult to really win in when it comes to performance marketing. You see a lot of brand stuff because it's not always attributed. And so what we had is we had like a really robust user base, and we had we were scaling subscribers, and we really wanted to capitalize on the existing users and try to catch those users who are in the warm decision phase of leaning towards a vehicle inside the app, and get them into an experience that could drive a subscription. And the easiest way of us having that control was through paid media. So we had this awesome recommendation engine at Fair that was built from some of the smartest people I've ever been around. That based off of the one or two cars you would browse during your first session, would eventually learn to say, hey, here's this Toyota Camry, or here's this Honda Pilot, stuff like that, in a really short amount of time. And this engine basically like took our product catalog and turned it on its head, and it was super cool, really efficient. And we wanted to find a way of, all right, how do we take this proprietary ML model that we've created and our internal catalog and utilize these to create like a really awesome re-engagement experience on Facebook and Instagram. And you have these three major pillars here that don't talk to each other by any stretch of the imagination, and don't talk to each other in a really cool way. And so what we were able to do, and like Abhi, I'm gonna give you a shout out, you helped me out tremendously on this, is we saw that there was a major opportunity here to leverage this data for paid media. And we just had to find a way of putting it into a format that Facebook could digest and could be layered with our targeting. And so what we did, we built a new attributes model for our customers that would be supported by our recommendation engine, so that we could re-engage customers with cars that they hadn't already seen but aligned with their in-app interests, in Facebook and in Instagram and get them directly into the app again, to subscribe and eventually purchase that product. And it was awesome. Like that that monolith of a project allowed us to lower our CAC, cost per acquisition costs, tremendously, because we were able to capitalize on our existing users in a way that we had never capitalized on them before. Now, I don't know if that mechanism can exist in this world today with, some of the changes that have been going on when it comes to user information and what you're able to like lean on. But it was a really awesome project and allowed us to like have a wide range of creativity.
To me, it's always fascinating, to work with folks like yourself, right? And in this particular case, I had the privilege of kind of working hand in hand with you. Look, the data is out there, right? I mean, there is information, potentially locked up or being used for, a singular purpose. But when you kind of came to me with this idea, right, you said, hey, well, we kind of have all this data over here, right? And if we can leverage it in the right way and just get it to, some of these other systems that kind of traditionally don't speak to each other, right? There's something that like I hadn't seen anyone do, like combine, inventory information in that way. And the fact that it kind of resulted in such a, spectacular result at the time was awesome. But I think it started with, with you sitting down, looking at the data, looking at the systems that, you potentially have to optimize and putting all that together.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect right out the gate. We would have ads that, all you saw was a background image. You didn't see a car. It was beat. But, as we started to recognize, okay, these are the attribute models we need in order to create, this specific sort of retargeting ad, it started working out really, really well.
Awesome. I love it. Nick, I realize again, I can't thank you enough for your time here, but for a minute, if you'll indulge me before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to take off, Nick, the entrepreneur and kind of growth product hacker extraordinaire. I want you to take that hat off. Like, what's one of your favorite brands or experiences as a consumer, and why? And then I'll follow that up. I wanted to get your take on I got a couple hot takes that I wanted your answer on.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite brands, that's a really difficult question for me to answer. It is, man. I think that we're in this time right now where, and I think it's, this direct to consumer sort of wave that catapulted over the last 5 years, is that you as a customer have like such a crazy expectation when you're purchasing from a company. Like you have the expectation that, this is going to be a world-class product, a world-class experience. I think in the world of, and that's like, hard retail e-commerce. In the world of mobile apps, what I love is, I'm actually kind of going to go off the reservation here.
Okay.
My one experience and product that I love right now, and maybe it's because, I've got that crypto bug, is it's an app called Voyager. It's kind of like a competitor to Coinbase. And there's something really unique about their experience, in my opinion. When you're going in the financial sector, and I've had to like, I'm one of those people who's inherently curious about new products, and I go through the onboarding of dating apps for no reason, with like random personas, just so I can see how the onboarding is evolving. And then I'll do the same onboarding with like, Credit Karma, and I'll do Bank of America. And I just want to go through these onboarding experiences and like, seeing like, okay, how are things changing and what are they trying to get the users to do and why does it mean to them? And, through that experience, you start to like get exposed to like, okay, this is very frictionless and they made it so easy. you know?
Mm.
And with something that is rather difficult to grasp, like cryptocurrencies, for somebody who's not familiar with anything in the crypto space, there's a couple of ways to go about it. There's one way where it's like, you're hand holding them and you're really providing a tremendous amount of education and you're trying to get them to understand what Bitcoin and Ethereum are. And like I went through one of these experiences with my dad, and like bless his heart, man, like it's a lot to grasp if this is a very new thing that you're jumping into. And what Voyager has done as an app is they've made that experience very simple, like no noise, super easy, very direct, like, almost dumbed it down to a point where it's almost impossible to get lost and like not know what it's like to place a transaction on a Bitcoin or Ethereum or any sort of cryptocurrency in their marketplace. I feel like that's really interesting to me because it's an industry that is very complicated, is getting a lot of buzz and getting a lot of traction at this point in time. So many people are coming in absolutely blind and making bad decisions, and they found a way to like sort of curb the bad decisions while also providing a really delightful customer experience. And they did that by making it simple. And I think that's pretty cool. It's a cool product that I'm into right now.
Love that, man. And again, spoken like a true professional. That's so funny that you actually go through like the app experiences and sign up flows just to see what people are doing. And yeah, it goes to show, man. I mean, this is why you're on top of the game, right? But shout out to Voyager, and yeah, it's definitely something I'll take a look at. All right, this is the fun part. Hot takes, right?
Okay.
Totally unscripted. Okay, so I got a few rapid fire questions for you. Most of them are kind of true or false or yes or no type questions.
Okay.
So let's and listen, I don't know this about you. I
Cool.
feel like I have to know.
Cool.
All right, pineapple on pizza.
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely not.
We can keep talking then. This is a relief.
In this economy?
Yeah, all right, for sure. Okay, cool. Winter or summer sports?
Summer. I don't like the cold.
Awesome. All right, true SoCal guy.
Yeah.
LeBron or MJ?
Oh, MJ, man. LeBron's a diva.
Hey man, come on. I thought, I don't know. I thought it would be tough for you given, LeBron's the LA guy now.
Oh man, I've been to games at the Staples Center and have booed that man to his face.
Okay, love that. All right, I got two more for you. Froyo or ice cream?
Oh, ice cream, man. There's something about going and getting ice cream and eating ice cream that's just awesome. I mean, there's nothing, no knock on Froyo, but you have a lot of range when it comes to ice cream flavors that can really hit the spot.
Love that. Yeah, and again, I forced you into a choice there, so Froyo is good too. I guess the right answer is both, but okay, and then the final one for you, just because I am a voracious eater and a huge foodie. Favorite restaurant in SoCal?
Favorite restaurant in SoCal? Oh man. There's a restaurant that's in San Diego that is really just near and dear to my heart, and it's called Sea Level. It's like owned by a group, and you sit down there, you're overlooking like the San Diego like sort of like bay, like Coronado Bridge, downtown San Diego, and the harbor, and it's just beautiful. Like one of the best. You get great food, great ambiance, and would always take anybody who's visiting San Diego there. Sea Level, so good.
Amazing. Well, Nick, thank you for being first, episode 1, launching this podcast with me. And again, I think these are, there's so much here and so many amazing insights. Yeah, really can't thank you enough for making the time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
Thanks so much for listening to this conversation from Connected by mParticle. For more on this episode, you can check out the show notes and transcript on our blog. You can also subscribe to the podcast on any major podcast player. If building great customer experiences is important to you, sign up for our monthly newsletter, mPulse, which includes a very short list of the best blog articles, use cases, and industry reads from throughout the month. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.